They are joined by one of the most consistent and perhaps underrated midfielders the A-League has ever seen, Western United. Western United, Steve Lustica. Thank you so much for joining me today, Steve.
Hey mate, thanks for having me on.
We'll start with my first introduction question, which is a bit of a low ball question, a bit of a softball for you. Just where did your passion and love for football first begin?
Pretty much since I can remember, to be honest. I grew up in Canberra, and my dad played the game. He used to play back in the old NSL for Canberra City, and he obviously pretty much introduced me to football. So yeah, from a very early age, from whenever I can remember, I was always with the ball and always had a love and passion for it. So it started pretty much. Yeah, from 3, 4, 5 years of age, I was always kicking a ball, and from then it just took off.
And as kids, we all have dreams, particularly some more than others, of becoming a professional footballer. But a lot of us, we realize pretty soon that maybe that's a bit unrealistic. When was the moment for you, if you had one, where you realized chasing football as a profession could actually be something that's viable?
Yeah, look, I grew up in Canberra, so it wasn't an easy road for me just because in Canberra there was no real professional pathway. So you sort of go through you start off at a club and then you go through the state teams and all that. But from then on, there's not an A-League team in Canberra then, and there still isn't. So for me, it was a little bit harder. I had to go interstate to various clubs to sort of pursue that. So yeah, from memory, like I was meant to go to the AIS, like into the intake there and get a scholarship, but then they changed the age groups. So then my age group didn't. They actually changed it and made them younger. So then I sort of missed that boat. And then I remember I got selected. It was an Australian under-18s team. We had like a youth Olympics in Sydney at the time. I got selected in that. At the time, I was playing for the Sydney FC youth team. And yeah, played well in that. And then I got an opportunity to go to Gold Coast United in their first year. So that was the first year of Gold Coast United in the A League. And pretty much then, yeah, I made my debut there. So I was 17, 18 years of age. But before that, I was at Sydney FC youth team, training a little bit with the first team a couple of times, getting a bit of a taste for it. But then obviously went to Gold Coast United, was there for 2 years, was, part of the youth team there. We won the championship there 2 years in a row. I was captain and had some appearances, obviously, with the first team as well, made my debut. And yeah, pretty much started there, and then from there, yeah, went overseas from there. So yeah, look, like I said, it wasn't an easy road for me just because there was no real pathway, especially coming from Canberra. It wasn't easy. You sort of had to, stand out in Canberra, and then hopefully get selected into one of the A League setups.
And you just mentioned making your debut for Gold Coast United. Obviously, that's a massive achievement for any, aspiring football to get your first crack of first team football. But a lot of players I speak to about their debuts actually don't remember too much about the match. Is it similar for you? Do you remember anything about your debut? If so,
No,
how do you think you personally went during that game?
no, of course I remember my debut. You can't not forget your first professional game. Yeah, it was against Central Coast Mariners. Blue. It was that. I think they used to call it Blue Tongue back then, Blue Tongue Stadium. Yeah, came on. I think we lost 3-0 at the time against the Mariners. But yeah, it was my first game, debut. Yeah, and back then we had like a great team. Jason Colina was captain. We had Shane Smelts. We had a great team. I remember that year. So definitely remember that. Yeah.
I mean, moving from Canberra to the Gold Coast, that's a bit of a big move for a young bloke, but off the back of, you only had a couple of games at Gold Coast. Off the back of that, you made a massive move to one of Croatia's biggest teams. Apologies to any Croatians, including yourself, if I mispronounce the name. Hajduk Split. How did that move come about? And, what was it like not only just moving from Canberra to the Gold Coast, but then moving overseas at such a young age playing football? What was that whole experience like for you?
Yeah, unbelievable to be honest. It came about. Yeah, like most things come out of nothing, really. I mean, I was playing obviously at the Gold Coast. We were 2 years in a row where we won the championship. I think I got Player of the Year in the whole youth league the second year. So I was doing well. I made some appearances with the first team, handful of appearances. And then, I got offered to go for a trial over there with the first team. They obviously heard about me, and I went over and trialed and was successful and signed the contract, and pretty much happened pretty quickly. And before I knew it, I was making my debut for Hajduk Split a couple of months later.
And we often don't talk about the off the field sort of aspect when it comes to these young players getting these big moves overseas, but obviously it'd be a bit of an adjustment. You're not only just playing for this massive team, but you're also living in a new country on your own. So was that a difficult adjustment for you being overseas on your own? And what were some of the
Look,
biggest difficulties you found?
yeah, look, my background's Croatian, so I speak the language. I've been there many times in the past. So, out of all the places I could have gone, that would have been the easiest place to go was Croatia, just because got a lot of family there. Like I said, I've been there many times on holidays, speak the language. So, in that sense, it wasn't hard to adjust to the lifestyle. But obviously, the flip side was the football was totally different. Yeah, it was a lot more cutthroat. Hajduk Split's one of the biggest clubs in Croatia. The fan base is huge. You're playing against, in front of 30, 40,000 people that are diehard fans. Yeah. So in that sense, that the pressure was, didn't matter that I was 19, 20 years of age. The pressure was like I was 30 years of age. They don't look at your age there. There's no excuses there. So if you have a bad game, if you're 18, 19, 20 or 30, it's the same. Yeah. So the pressure there is very high every week. Yeah. You're expected to win every game and perform. So from that sense, yeah, it was obviously a big adjustment from playing, in the A League for Gold Coast United at the time. The pressure was and the expectation was so much higher. So obviously I had to adjust to that pretty quickly. So yeah, that side, obviously was new to me, but you obviously adjust and you gain experience from that.
And a lot of boys, like young Australians I've spoken to, have made overseas moves, particularly in Europe, have sort of told this story about, being Australian and being in Europe, having to work extra hard to prove yourself because we're not seen as a footballing nation. Was that a similar experience for you when you went over to Europe? Did you find that because you're Australian, perhaps people didn't take you as seriously as they should have?
Yeah, and the other thing is you have to be better than their local talent there as well, because otherwise they're not gonna play you. They're not gonna sign you if you're no better than what they have there. You have to really be, much better than what they have there for them to want you. So that's the other thing. Doesn't matter that, I was Croatian background and that they still saw me as an Australian there. Didn't matter that I still spoke the language. You're still seen as an Australian. So you got to bring something a little bit different to what they have there. And over there they produce top quality, top class players all the time. So, it definitely wasn't easy, but yeah, you definitely had to prove yourself. And like I said, there was obviously it was a great time for me. Growing up, I'm a big supporter of Hajduk. Like that's my team. Hajduk Split was the team that I grew up supporting. So I had a big love and passion for them growing up. So for me to go there and play for them, was like a dream come true for me. I've been there in the past when I was younger to watch games as well with my family. So, I've been there before to the stadiums as a supporter, but then to actually, put on a jersey and walk out in front of, a packed stadium was surreal.
And you had a couple of loan moves. Obviously, they're a big squad. You mentioned they've got unbelievable players. There's just some unbelievable footballers that come through Croatia, particularly some of the biggest squads. So competition for first team places is pretty rough. A lot of young players often get put on loan. You had a couple of loan moves. What's the feeling like in a dressing room being a loan player as opposed to, a permanent signing? Did you feel maybe a bit outcasted? Did you feel a bit awkward knowing that you're only here for a short period of time, or was it something that you didn't really worry too much about?
Well, pretty much when I signed, I was straight in the first team. So when I signed for Hajduk, I straight away my debut was against Barcelona. So that was my first game. We had a 100-year
Unreal.
celebration on the club, and so we played Guardiola's Barca. Yeah, so they flew out from Spain to Split. We played them in a friendly game. It wasn't a friendly game. It was a packed stadium. It was unbelievable. So that was my first game. So the first season, I played a fair few games. I was starting pretty much. I was thrown straight in there. Yeah, I had a good preseason. the coach was a foreign coach. He came in and he liked me, so I was actually thrown straight in there. Yeah, so my start there was, I had a good positive start there, and then as time went on, different coaches came in. We went through 4, 5, 6 different coaches while I was there. So then obviously different coaches come in, and then I went on loan to a second division team. Got game time there as well. We actually ended up winning the second division there, and then came back again. So there was 1 or 2 loan spells there, but yeah, it was still like I said, even when I went on loan, I was still getting game time. I was playing games, and I was still a young player. Yeah? I was like 20 years old then, and 20 years old, is very young. But over there, you're not considered that young at 20. Yeah, but now, like when you look at the A League, there's not many 20-year-olds even playing in the A League. You know, but when I look at my time there, when I was like say 21, 22, I was considered like an old player. So when you look at 21, 22-year-olds here in the A League, they're babies still. They've hardly ever played 10 games. So over there, they mature very quickly. Yeah. So they're ready at 16, 17, 18 to be playing senior football. So that's probably the biggest gap that I saw is that they're ready. The players there are ready much earlier than we're ready here.
You ended up coming back to Australia not too long after you were on loan in Australia, actually. Was the goal for you always to return to Australia, or was it just something that, you sort of fell into, something that kind of happened unexpectedly and you were planning to maybe stay in Europe?
Yeah, no, just obviously I wanted more games. I was still young and I wanted to play more games, and the opportunity came up to go on loan to Brisbane. So I went on loan to Brisbane. We ended up, I think, we made it to the semi-finals that year. Like moves like that, they come about usually because you're looking at more game time, pretty much. Yeah, otherwise you wouldn't be moving. It's as simple as that. So, but when I look back at my time in Croatia, was unbelievable. Yeah, because that's where it helped me grow as a player. That's pretty much where I started my career. Yeah, I know I made a few appearances at Gold Coast United, but really it started at Hayduk Split. That's where I really matured and really gained that experience and a taste for it. Yeah. So that's where it really started for me.
And when you returned to Australia, you were with Adelaide United. Now, you played some incredible football at Adelaide United. I think there was even talks of you potentially going in the Socceroos. But unfortunately, with football, sometimes things can get a bit tricky off the pitch. You had the option to rejoin Brisbane Roar, fantastic side at the time. A side, obviously, you were already there on loan, but the club just didn't really want to play ball with you, unfortunately, and it led to a bit of a sticky situation. How hard is that for you as a player mentally? You've got this good move lined up, you're playing good football, and then your progress is halted by off-field issues. Is that sort of really hard to mentally deal with? Because I know there's probably not a lot of support out there for footballers who are essentially held to ransom by clubs at times.
Yeah, look, that's I guess part of football. When you have a couple of different offers on the table, you got to make a decision where you feel most comfortable. I guess so. That's all part of football. It happens. For all footballers. You got to sort of sometimes you have a couple of choices and you got to sort of make a decision, and they're all very close. Yeah, so you're weighing up different options, and ultimately you got to decide where you want to play. So, with Adelaide, that's going back, yeah, like good 10 years now. So I was 22 probably back then, 21, 22. I was a young player as well. Yeah, but still not much experience here. I had experience in Croatia, of course, but I was still, a young player, and the opportunity came up to go back to Brisbane, and at the time, I felt that was, they were obviously a top side back then. Great players. Obviously had the loan spell there as well, so I felt comfortable there. And we ended up winning the double then with the premiership and the grand final. That was all part of it, I guess. As a footballer, you go through, off-field problems or on-field problems. You just got to deal with it, and that sort of shapes you as a player ultimately. Because in football, there's no guarantees, I guess. Yeah, so you got to sort of just deal with what's in front of you and keep pushing forward.
That's good advice for any young footballers watching who perhaps may be in a similar bit of a situation. But like you mentioned Croatia, I've seen footage from matches in Croatia. the crowds look absolutely insane. Like it looks like such a good environment to play in front of. In Australia, we don't have that to the same extent, but particularly when the Western Sydney Wanderers got started and when the RBB's up, I believe they're as good as some of the best in the world in terms of fan bases. The atmosphere they can provide is just unbelievable. For you having played in Europe in front of these passionate fans in Europe and then coming to play in front of someone like an RBB, I know it's hard to sort of compare, but how does that atmosphere stack up? Perhaps, playing in a Sydney derby or something.
It doesn't compare. You can't compare it. To be honest with you, I mean, the Sydney derbies, they're good. I've played in them. I've played in most of the derbies here, but the Hajduk Split Dinamo Zagreb derby, mate, there's not many in the world that would compete with that.
Of course, in the A League, sometimes we have these. What's the best way to describe them? Exhibition matches where a big side comes down. Being a player playing in these matches, I know you played against Barcelona in a friendly, played against Arsenal in a friendly. Is it hard to sort of take them seriously, or do you just kind of get swept up in the moment?
Yeah, look, those games, obviously, especially like when they come, like for instance, my first one was when I was at Brisbane. Liverpool came and we played Liverpool at Suncorp Stadium. I think it was 2015, and that was unreal. Like, Suncorp Stadium packed out. Yeah, that was really. And then we played Arsenal. Yeah, I played Arsenal with the Wanderers as well. That was like 84,000 people. Yeah, it was a friendly game, but it's still a great experience. Yeah, so those games, especially when they come, like I feel like now sometimes, like the last couple of seasons, there was a few teams came out, but it wasn't really, didn't really get that vibe. Yeah, but I recall the Suncorp game against Liverpool. That was unreal. Yeah, that was like packed Suncorp Stadium. They had "You'll Never Walk Alone" before the game. It really felt something like, yeah, this is a proper football atmosphere. Same with the Arsenal game. That was 84,000 people at Stadium Australia. That was another one, yeah. So those games are definitely beneficial, yeah, if they're done properly.
Can they work something? Do they go for power, height?
Emiliano Martinez, who we saw in the second half in game one, is on the pitch for David Ospina. And this is a big opportunity for Western Sydney. Will it be Rolly Bolivancia or Steven Luštica? They'll be looking for the roof of the net. Or maybe the low option may play out. It is Lustica, and it stays out. No, second attempt. It's scored. It's a sweet goal for Steven Luštica as the Wanderers pull one back, and a richly deserved one in the second half.
Yeah, for sure. And gets a little bit of luck there, gets a second bite of the cherry. Very difficult to score the first attempt. Arsenal managed to get the block. Fires back out to Lustica, who volleys it to the roof of the net. Good reaction, and certainly well needed, and something that Western Sydney Wanderers will be quite relieved to get that goal, get back into the game, and hopefully slow Arsenal down in their tracks a little bit.
Good reaction, good technique by Steven Luštica.
You did move back to Croatia actually after Western Sydney Wanderers. What was it like to be back in the country? When you first come, you were just a teenager, like 19, 20. Now you got all this experience behind you, a lot of games. Did you feel like you were ready to take the Croatian league by the scruff of the neck?
Yeah, look, that was after Western Sydney Wanderers. I went back for a season. Yeah, that was a different club. Yeah, so comparing Hajduk Split into Zaprešić, you can't compare it. Yeah, so it's obviously still in the top division, but the differences in clubs is a lot different. Yeah, so the expectations are a lot different as well. But yeah, look, obviously that was I had a few injuries as well that season, which didn't help. But yeah, look, going back to live in Croatia was great. Obviously, I knew the country, I knew the league. The league had changed as well. There was less teams. It was probably even more competitive than it had ever been. Croatia just finished runners up in the World Cup that year as well. So there was a big buzz around Croatian football at the time. So yeah, going back to live there again was good. But to be honest, I usually go back there every year for a holiday anyway. So it's pretty much like a second home for me. So yeah, it wasn't wasn't much of an adjustment for me to go back living there.
Now, Uzbekistan. Now, I work for the AFC, so I know a lot about this league, and I believe it's one of the most underrated leagues in football. The quality is surprisingly good. What did you know about the country or the league or the football in Uzbekistan before you come? And was there anything on or off the pitch that maybe surprised you a little bit, good or bad?
Yeah, look, I didn't obviously know too much about the league. I spoke to a few players that have played there. In Croatia, there was a few players, and then obviously Australian players that played there. It was one of those things. I got came out of the blue as well. My agent rang me up and said, "Look, I got a good offer for you. Would you be interested?" And yeah, look, I went there, and it was a different experience, obviously for me. But in terms of the league and the quality of the players there, it's very underrated. I mean, they produce some real technical players there. But in terms of it's a different country to live in. Yeah, it's a lot different to live in than in Split or in Zagreb in Croatia. So it was definitely a different experience for me living in Asia for the first time. But yeah, look, it was a positive experience. I had a good time there. And yeah, I guess there's not much more I can say. Yeah, look, it was a good experience in the end for me. Yeah.
And now finally on to Western United, where you currently are. You'll move back to Australia again. Were you planning on coming back to Australia, or were you maybe looking to stay in Asia, maybe looking to go back to Europe? Or was it kind of one of these things, as you mentioned, that you got an offer that was just good and you thought, okay, it's time to come home?
Yeah, look, it was just one of those things in football. You're always open to anything. I guess you never sort of, you never shut any doors, or I was open to everything. And the opportunity came up to come to Western United. And yeah, and I've been here now. This is my fifth year now, fifth season, going into the fifth season now at Western. We've had some unbelievable times at the club now. We obviously, a couple of seasons ago, we won the grand final, the championship. The first year we made it to the semi-final. So looking back, I've had a great experience at Western.
And your football, as I mentioned in the introduction, I believe you've been one of the most consistent and underrated footballers in the league. I don't think I've seen you play better football than when you played at Western United. You've been absolutely incredible at times, and I really don't believe you get the recognition. But for you, what do you think it is about this club and this setup that is really getting the best out of you as a player?
Here's Prijovic, chance here brewing for Western. They've scored! Steve Lustica, 4 goals in 7 matches for the former Sydney FC junior. He's earned that contract extension he's just signed, and the breakthrough arrives with 25 minutes to go, and it's gone the way of Western United.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure, to be honest. Look, the culture of the club's fantastic. We have a great culture at the club. The boys are great. Yeah, we got a real good group. The coaching staff, John, Foxy, yeah, they've been doing a great job with the boys the past couple of seasons. So, like I said, everyone knows their roles and responsibilities. We all know what's expected of us. We come into training with a smile on our faces. We work hard for each other, and that reflects then on the weekend when you have a game. Yeah, of course, then you're in the right mindset to perform on the weekend when that's all going well. So, look, we've got a great environment. Yeah, that's the main thing. The culture's great. We love coming into training every day and working hard, and like I said, that rubs off on all the boys.
And now that you're one of the more experienced players in the squad, you've got this experience in Australia and Europe, got a lot of good young midfielders coming through. How have you taken on that sort of leadership role? And is it something that you've enjoyed? Is it something that maybe after football you want to go into coaching or management?
Yeah, look now, yeah, definitely. We got some good young players coming through now, 100%. And yeah, look, as the years gone past now, like you sort of look back and say, look, I was obviously that age not too long ago, and you sort of do look up. I know I used to look up to the older players as well, to learn off them, to sort of for them to lead by example. And now that's my turn now, so I definitely try and lead by example. Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways you can do that. You can do that by talking a lot. You can do that by your actions, the way you train, the way you prepare. So I try and lead by example in that way. Yeah, I make sure that, I come in early, I do all my prehab, I train 100% every day, I do my recovery, I do all the things that a professional player has to do. And definitely for the younger players, they've got to do the same. Yeah, they've got to do the same. So, I try and help them out as much as I can. But ultimately, it's up to them. Yeah, it's up to them to decide if they want to, keep going or not. Because as you see, a lot of young players come to the A League, and then with 1 or 2 seasons, they're gone. Yeah, they're not there anymore just because they're not mentally ready. They're not ready to work hard. They're not mentally ready to put in the work to stay at that level. Yeah, because it's all right to get a contract for 1 or 2 years, but you got to stay there for 10, 15 years if you want to, form a career. So I see too many youngsters that, they think that they get a contract and that's it. The work's done, no? But that's when their work really starts. But look, at Western, we have a lot of good young players, yeah. So we don't have that problem at Western. A lot of the young boys that are coming through there, they got their head switched on. They're ready to work, which is good to see.
Finally, for you personally, 2023's almost over, but we've got a new season starting up. So what are your personal goals for the rest of 2023?
Yeah, mate, just stay on the pitch, stay injury free, perform to the best that I can, help the team, and obviously we want to win. Yeah, we want to win games, we want to win titles. So, yeah, it's no secret. Everyone wants to win, but you got to put in the work to win. Yeah, everyone talks about winning and winning trophies, but it's all well and good saying that. But if you don't put in the work, if you don't have the right mentality, you won't get there. So it's day by day. Yeah, day by day, making sure you do the correct things, you prepare well, you train well, you recover well. Like I said, touch wood that the body holds up, and yeah, that's it, mate.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing some of your amazing footballing stories. I really appreciate your time.
No worries at all, mate. Thanks for having me on.